designed a mount for the GNSS Performance Analyzer to mount it on the outside of this carbon fiber Animal Cat 2 hull, because the GPS signal will not go through carbon fiber. So that looks a whole lot nicer than a wad of tape on there. It also should be more aerodynamic. I'll go over how I made that mount and also everything that I did to get this ready to run Animal Cat out of the box and on the water. In order to run the Sky RC GNSS Performance Analyzer exposed like this, the first thing you have to do is waterproof it. So I'll show you how I did that using conformal coating and silicone caulk. Here's the aluminum bracket I made. It's just 1/16 soft aluminum. I bent to the shape of it, then I primed it and painted it black. I also have Velcro on there, so it's clamped down and then the Velcro keeps it from sliding. Here's what I had to do to waterproof this. If you look on the back side, there's a seam here. So you have this outside cover and then this back plate. So that seam I sealed with the conformal coating all the way around. Taped up the charge port. So now that's removable to charge the unit. There are no other holes on the sides. So then on the front of the unit, here, here, and here, I've used conformal coating. Just a little dab on each one of those lights. And this is a reset button right here. And I believe it also lets air pressure into the unit for checking altitude, which I don't need with the boat. But that's where I use the caulk. So I just took a small screwdriver, pressed a little caulk in there. If I need to reset it or run it in the airplane for altitude, I can just pick that little bit of caulk out. The key to this being secure on the outside of the hull is bending this aluminum to match the outside of the case, and then this bend here, distance-wise, it doesn't touch down on these female threads here. See, when I put it on there, and then when I tighten the thumb screws, it's going to squeeze the Velcro down onto the hull. Now I have the thumb screws just touching down on the bracket, but not pulled all the way down. So you can see as I tighten these down and seat these thumb screws, squeezing the Velcro. And that Velcro is not sliding. You can pick the boat up with this. If that comes off, I got bigger issues than just losing my GPS unit. Here's the hardware I used for the GPS mount. It's also the same thumb screws I used on the Cowling. So thumb screw and then the nut with the epoxy holes. So I just drilled these out. I could reach in here, epoxy the nuts inside there. Nice, secure, good looking mount for the GPS unit. Okay, what else have I done to get the Animal Cat out of the box and on the water? I've put a breakaway nylon screw on the rudder. I reused the hardware, the aluminum washers and the nylock nut, just for appearance. So looks nice, but now we have the breakaway function. I sharpened, balanced, and polished the props that came with the boat and greased the flex shafts. And something to note is all the hardware that are mounting the stingers were tight. Had no concerns about wanting to put Loctite on them. That would be all these mounting screws in here. And the other thing is, after running the boat, I'm not getting water in where the stingers mount, so I left that alone. And the servo mount and the servo mounted to the mount, those screws are just nail tight, so not concerned with them. Did not take them out and put Loctite on them. But as I said in my maiden video, yes, I pulled the motors in order to get Loctite on the drive dogs, on the screws that mount the motor, and then all the screws on the electronics tray, I put Loctite on them. While I had the motors pulled, the one on the right, I rotated these wires. They were up here. I rotated them down to here because they were coming up like this and you couldn't put the cowling on. Kept it from seating. And the jam foam. I cut many pieces of foam, packed them all the way up in here, cut them at pieces at an angle to fit up in the front, cut them at an angle this way and this way to fit all the way up in here. So they're packed nice and tight, the whole front of the boat with foam. And I built this stand for the boat. The last thing of note that I did before I put the boat in the water, made it so I have thumb screws for mounting the cowling. These are nothing more than 3/4 inch wide by 2.5 inch strips of 1/16 carbon fiber, scuffed up underneath with sandpaper, and on the carbon fiber strips that are not exposed, epoxy them up underneath, 45-degree angles, and aligned and drilled the holes for the cowling. I'll show a series of pictures of what I did to get my holes drilled accurately once I had these nuts mounted in the boat. Here's the nut plates, epoxied and clamped in place with the thumb screws through the paper drill guides. They're taped to the top deck. Now I've removed the thumb screws after the epoxy is cured. Now it's a simple matter of putting the cowling in place and laying the paper down. Use them holes as a drill guide. And here's the final result. So there's a couple tips on adding thumb screws. A series of pictures you just saw. And that's about it as far as what I did to get this on the water. My opinion on the Animal Cat 2 from Oxidean Marine, from listening to others and just from what I see, as far as what came with the boat, electronics, hardware, how this is set up, it doesn't need a thing as far as upgrades to go really fast. And the last thing to address, no, I'm not an influencer, and yes, I paid for the boat. Last thing, I believe to go really fast is props, which I don't consider upgrading hardware. We play with props all the time to tune our boats. So I got the stock props on the boat ready to go. I'll see what it can do. But I also have two other sets of props ready to go. Pair of ABC props and Offshore Electrics. They're CNC machined brass props. Sizes I got ready to go, sharpened, polished, and balanced are a pair of ABC 1817, 1745 props, and the 4616 from Offshore Electrics, which measure 1.81 by 1.6 pitch, and putting them next to the ABC props, they look like 17-degree rake angle and same blade area ratio. So I got the maiden done. It's on some pretty rough water. Hit 71 miles an hour without even messing with anything, just checking the boat out. I did have an issue with my throttle, where if you watch the slider on the screen, just touched the throttle and it was jumping half throttle. And then that was just a mess to drive. See if I can handle that as far as driving goes. Why is that throttle so on or off? Calibrated it. And now I reset the model, reset it up. I couldn't figure something in there I changed on the setting. It calls it do that. I couldn't figure it out, but now I got nice linear throttle. So I'm ready to get after it. Got some props ready to go. It's a lot of sharpening and balancing, by the way. You gotta do two at a time when you want to try a different size prop. And I'll say this, I love this boat. A lot of talk out there about Oxidean Marine, overpriced boats. I shopped, and as we all know, it doesn't take long going from site to site and doing some price comparisons. And I feel this way, you could buy a lower priced catamaran and easily be right up to the price on this Animal Cat 2 with a few upgrades. This boat has everything it needs. Electronics, hardware, the hull. So let's go. I am 100% happy with this purchase.